I'm Chris, I'm an addict. Hey, Chris. You have no idea how nervous I am, but I'm really nervous. I'm going to take off my jacket, actually. There we go. I am standing here alive today only by the grace of my higher power as I understand him and the program of Narcotics Anonymous. If I hadn't got this program, there's no way I could have got through what I've had to get through. And 24 years is a big number, but it doesn't mean it's any different to what it was before. I'm still a drink and a drug away from using today. I think what happens is you grow and you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. And I think especially when you are in the recovery, every year there's something that challenges you, that gives you a choice. And the only thing that happens in there is it's your choice, it's nobody else's. And what I'm going to talk about is my recovery, my journey, and in that, my relationship with my higher power, because those are key in, especially my higher power, has been a very big key in my recovery, without a doubt. And not having that within the program, I think that it becomes null and void. For me, the recovery is the thing I've learned. When I first came out of rehab, I thought staying clean was to impress everybody else about how good I was and what I hadn't done. As I went down, I realized that more and more as I got on my own, in my own journey, that the consequences of anything I did within my recovery were mine and nobody else's. The only problem is that if I was to use, which I have obviously discovered, is the amount of people I hurt on the way, which was immense. So with that, and my higher power is something very, very special to me now. I had no idea what my higher power was when I initially started. I just said, whatever it is, it's bigger than me. I have chosen today to it to be my walk in Christianity, and it's a big thing in my life now. The reason I talk about my recovery, it is important that everybody has your own recovery because everybody has an example to lead by, but it's not necessarily going to be right for an individual. It has to be yourself, what you can deal with and what you can cope with. And the reason probably I bring this up is I don't go to many meetings. And I do go to meetings, but not enough. And I admit that quite frankly, because I need it for a lot of reasons, but I don't. So what has happened is my journey allowed me to explore other things of being able to reach out and help other people as well, which is very much around Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's been a privilege to be able to do that. My journey started very, very well. My using journey was way back in the 70s. And, the classic thing of meeting people and having a spliff and whatever else and just having a lot of fun with a group of people. And it's moving on to whatever and then whatever and whatever, and always thinking you're not going to be the one who's going to get caught out here. And it's amazing. It's the one thing I always remember was this invisible line coming across, and I crossed over the line before I even knew it. I had no idea. And that line is probably denial of how serious it had got for me. And I moved through a wide range of drugs and alcohol. I was making a real mess of my life. I was making a mess of everybody around me as well. And a lot of people didn't understand what was going on, and I had the classic family that would run around trying to make me better and not know how to do that. And it took 4 to 5 years before I could not survive without using every half hour. So I was using to live and live to use, and that's really where it came to for me. And the mark in my life where it actually came to a conclusion, and it's amazing that it takes so much before you go, I've had enough. But I see it every day. I see it every day with so many people. The denial is so big or the wish to accept that you have a problem is massive. And to the point that it ended up with me being in the streets in London, going to all-night cinemas in Leicester Square and sleeping there with all the other tramps and thinking that they had a real problem. And I, within a week, realized in that period of time I had a real problem. And with that, I was bussed off to a rehab. And I've never used so much as I did on the way down there because I wanted to have my last go. And I did. And it was a journey I'll never forget because it was the start of my new life, which at that point in time I didn't really care about. And when I arrived there, you get checked in, you get your photographs taken, all those things. I'm very suspicious of everybody. At that point in time, I weighed 42 kilos, and I had had enough. I went through and we had the detox. I had a really bad detox. I had 2 weeks of no sleep. It was an absolute nightmare for me. I was in agony, and I just really, a lot of things were happening. It's amazing when you've been using for so long that your feelings go. I had no feelings. I had no feelings at all for anybody, let alone myself, or knowing what a feeling was. I'd numbed everything. And suddenly, a week down the line, I had the most unbelievable panic attack I think I've ever had in my life. There were palpitations. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what was going on. And I was desperate also to stop using, and I'd gone through detox and 10 days, and I was put onto other detox to take me through this. So I was very disappointed, but I still wasn't sleeping. And then I had a very incredible experience where they had a chapel next door to this place. And they'd been teaching me stuff, like, admit that you're powerless, which I'd done. But then the step 2 thing was a real problem for me. And I couldn't believe in a power greater than myself or any of that. And I walked into the chapel in last resort because I just wanted to sleep. And I just remember getting on my knees and saying, well, whatever you are, whoever you are, just deal with this, please. And that night I got my first hour's sleep. And the following night, 2 hours. Following night, 3, and then 4 hours. It stayed at 4 hours for some time. And then it slowly started getting normal. And it was a very, very big impression on my life now, looking back to how that had happened. And a lot of things happened for me from there onwards because recovery started taking a very serious grip with me. And I went through the rehab, and I was out in 9 weeks. And I hit NA like you can't believe. It was a 12-step rehab. And I hit NA big time. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. I did any service that was possible. I was there and I was going to do it. And I continued to be there. And my new friends very clearly came from Narcotics Anonymous. And it was a very, very big part of my life. It was reasonably fresh in London. It had been going for probably a year and a half in London. And we were having probably 2 meetings. There were 2 to 3 meetings a week in London. You can now go to a meeting every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day. It's incredible. And it's a massive fellowship, which is just mind-blowing. It's worth going to if you get the chance. I then, after 6 months, I got an opportunity to come here. And I was very nervous about coming here and dealing with everything I've just been through and wondering if I was going to cope without my mates from Narcotics Anonymous. And somebody said, you'll find them there. Start with Alcoholics Anonymous. So I came over to this country on a 1-year contract, and I walked into an AA meeting and I listened. And everything that I'd learnt was right there, and it was great. And people were very welcoming, and it was fantastic. And I got into a group, and this was one in Ramberg, the Methodist church there. And there was some amazing, amazing people in there. And when you start hearing people of 15 and 20 years sobriety I believed that it was possible. And it was an amazing experience to walk into that, because I hadn't had that sort of sobriety, seeing people with that sort of sobriety in England, because it hadn't happened there yet. And anyway, needless to say, then you start speaking and you start sharing and all the rest of it. And the more and more I shared, the more and more I realized that there was a degree of discomfort of me being at the AA meetings. And I had been looking for NA in Harting, and I couldn't find it. But I knew that there were rehabs around, and maybe I should go and knock on those doors and all the rest of it. And it came to a conclusion that when you do talk about things like drugs in NA then, it was a real problem, because there are people with a lot of sobriety of not drinking, but they were still using another form of sedative, which was interesting, but it was making people uncomfortable. I had my first birthday at Ramberg Methodist, and it was an amazing experience. It was very warm, very loving, and it was stuff that I really will never, ever forget. I don't think you ever do forget your first birthday. And anyway, so I went through to find out how to see if NA could be used, because I knew about it, I was very hungry for it at the time, and I ended up going to Phoenix House. And again, I walk in there and I introduce myself, and I have all the literature, I've got the books, I've got stuff that I brought back from London and all the rest of it. And I met in the process, I can't remember what sister, I can't remember what her name was, anyway. And she was very keen that it came in. They were very warm to the whole idea. They would supervise it, and they would start it off in small groups. And we did, we started off in small groups. And it was run like an NA meeting, just in a rehab, Sanka rehab. And it was weekly as much as they allowed me in. Sometimes they had times when they didn't want the meeting, and so it would be cancelled. And then it would happen. But it did happen, and it was amazing, because there was a lot of recovery happening there, and a lot of people who wanted to stop using. And again, this bonding of, as we say, getting together as addicts, it is the only way to recover, and you start seeing that happen the moment that you get together. And then Sue and Lindsay were two counsellors there who really got onto the NA thing and thought that it was really something they needed to work on. And we were able to start up a meeting in Sanka in town as well, which is where it all started. There were 4 of us initially, and it grew to 6, it grew to 8. And it was a very interesting time because of certain legislations, we had to be under the umbrella of Sanka at all times, which didn't mean it was had any anonymity whatsoever. It was very much linked to the Sanka story. But it was starting, it was beginning to happen. The literature I was getting from London, London was just sending the stuff through. One of the meetings there was actually sponsoring the literature to come over to South Africa, which was amazing. And anyway, unfortunately what happened, and Dave will pick it up from that, but I then went back to England in 1990. And I left the reins over to Dave to carry it on. And when I came back 2 years later, it was amazing what had happened to NA. Now, I don't know what happened in that period, but obviously the HP had some serious stuff that was going on here, because what had happened with NA by the time I got back was just a completely different story. In 2 years, it was mind-blowing. And I came back, came to a few meetings, which was great, and it was really nice to be there. I used to go to one in Santon quite regularly. And what I've learnt is the program itself and the meetings are critical in your recovery. Though I speak probably lack of meetings. But all the time I've had things thrown at me that I look back and know if I hadn't got the program, I would not have been able to get through it. If I hadn't got people I could speak to, I would not have got through it. And I've been through, in my clean time, I've been through a divorce, which was quite hectic in a lot of elements. I have 2 boys from my previous marriage. I'm remarried now with 2 more kids. And I know that in the olden days it would be the easiest thing to go back and use, just because things got difficult. And because of the fellowship, because of the program, I am still alive and here today not using. I can't say that my behavior is absolutely perfect, because it certainly isn't. I have still a lot to work on, and I will have. The perfectionism in me just continues and continues. It's a killer. And I'll give you an example. I mean, the things that have happened to me where you have a choice. I 7 years ago, had a heart attack. And I was up in the Waterberg, which is about 3.5 hours away from any help. And the guy who was a doctor, who came to my call and came out to the farm that I was at, the first thing that he did was to say, I have to give you morphine. And that happened to be my drug of choice. And I haven't dealt with that at all for years. In fact, it was 18 years I hadn't dealt with it. And I said, I can't have that, because it is dangerous for me. I'm allergic to it. And he said, you have to, or else you're not going to live. So there's a choice there. I'm going to die anyway, so it's just what I was very, very scared. And the fact is, as somebody told me way back, he said, the level of choosing to use is when you choose to use and you know that you are using, and when you don't know you're using. And the example I was going to use was a glass that was, say sitting on a mantelpiece at a party, and you put your glass down there, and you picked it up again and had a good swig and drank it, and it was whiskey. And I remember this story, and this is what helped me. He said, because you picked up the glass not knowing, you did not use. You did not slip, because you didn't make a plan to do that. And I remember it because it really upset me when it happened, and that was early in my recovery. So when the morphine story came in, I realized that I had no choice in this, and that I was not wanting to use, and I didn't. He pumped me with morphine, and all the old thoughts came back. Bring it on, it happened. And I began to enjoy it very much, but the fact is, everything else started getting into control. I then was airlifted out of the Waterberg and brought down into Morningside. On the journey, I was given 2 more ampules of morphine, of which both of them I was unaware I was given. So by the time I got down to the Morningside clinic, I was out of my box. I had no I mean, when we were flying in the helicopter, I was somewhere else. I was flying in another direction. I actually cannot remember the flight at all. Arrived down in Morningside, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, met me at the airport, and I just put my hand out, and I felt her hand, and I was taken into ICU. While I was in ICU, they continued to monitor me, and they gave me, because I was in considerable pain, they gave me another shot of morphine the next day, but they gave me a half ampule, and I remember this very clearly. And the nurse left the half ampule beside my bed and said, if you need this, just give me a shout and I'll give you a shot. Now, I'm sitting in a bed and there's nothing more else to do than just sit there looking at this ampule of morphine. And I was not necessarily, after a period of time, in pain anymore. But the choices are going through my mind. I can have this because she says I can. But the choice had now changed. I didn't need it. And I actually then, I asked the sister to remove it, and it was hard. And she did, and she removed it. But the fact is, the addiction continues to live. It's sorting out our behavior and all of that, and attitude and program and all of those 12 steps to say, this is the choice I have and I can make it now. And you do. For the rest of our lives, we now have a choice. I didn't have a choice 24 years ago. And I'm able to make choices like that because I'm here with the program and with you guys and with a lot more people that I've been involved with. And so for me to talk here now is a rare thing, and I am nervous, and I haven't done it for a long time. And I just want to say thanks. And it's great to see so many people here, and it's great to see how big NA is getting all over the world. That you know that if you travel anywhere in the world, you can get to a meeting. Okay, thanks very much.